We've got 5 more days until the Lions go over to Green Bay and face the Packers in Sunday Night Football. But before we get into the rest of the week and all the news leading up to that game, the predictions, the breakdowns and everything, I want to talk about the Detroit Lions in today's video. What has turned this team around? Why have they gone from 1-6 and seemingly couldn't get out of their own way to the team that now, let's be real, if the Lions beat the Packers, get into the playoffs with a little help from Seattle, who really wants to face them? I actually think there are a number of teams at the top of the NFC that won't want to face Detroit. Doesn't mean they'll have a choice, but we're going to provide, I think, a bigger problem for them than many other teams that they could potentially face. So let's get into all that and maybe just a little bit more in today's Lions Talk Live. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I am your host once again, Dan Thornton. This is the Tuesday version of Lions Talk Live. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. Take you maybe a second and a half to hit the subscription button, maybe leave a thumbs up. And if you have a couple questions you want to bounce off us, go ahead and leave it in the comments section below. Here at Lions Talk Live, we're trying to bring you daily content that helps you stay connected with your team, the Detroit Lions. So with that being said, like we said in the intro, we're going to break down a couple things, at least that I perceive, are points of interest as to what led the Lions to go from 1-6, talking about tanking from the number 1 pick, everybody bemoaning the trade of TJ Hockenson, and a number of other factors, what could have been this season and what was at that point. So, having coached for, as most of you know, for over 30 years, what can I say based on those experiences and being also a reporter / sports editor for over 20 years? What can I take from that and give you guys some wisdom into what led to this mammoth turnaround for the Detroit franchise? Let's break it down and start with the biggest component to any NFL or probably at any level, any football team, and that's going to be the quarterback play. Jared Goff, as we all know, was a part of the Matthew Stafford trade almost 2 years ago where the Rams said, we can't win with this guy. Goff had been a 2-time Pro Bowler selection in roughly 5 seasons with the Rams, took him to a Super Bowl, and then for whatever reason, Sean McVay gave up on this kid, and that's what he was at the time. When he was traded, he was 25, almost 26 years old. He's 28 now in Detroit, having played 2 seasons. And let's look at the facts. Goff's first season started off abysmal in Detroit. But is that because of the talent at wide receiver? Is that because emotionally he had been very disheveled by, you could almost call it a breakup from the Rams to Detroit? Something that most people probably would not handle well. But then a funny thing happened in the latter part of last season. Goff came alive. In the last 6 games of the 2021 season, Goff was, if you just look at those games, the number 4 ranked quarterback in all the NFL. His completion percentage went way up, touchdowns went way up, and interceptions went way down. What did they know? They clearly knew and had faith that this kid could do something. While they had to clean up some of his pocket presence and mechanics with his feet, yes, early in the year, especially if you remember the Cowboys game, he was drifting back way too far, forcing his offensive line tackles to look dumb because he was drifting so far out of their protection schemes that he was putting everybody in harm's way. The Lions seemed concerned with that and addressed it over the next couple weeks. And what we've seen in the last quarter of the season is a very clean, crisp pocket for Goff and his ability to step up in the pocket, almost Tom Brady-esque. Now, with all but 1 game left in the 2022 season, what can we say? Goff is indeed one of the NFL's top quarterbacks in either touchdowns, least amount of interceptions, completion percentages, whatever matrix you want to say. He is anywhere from number 11 to number 2 in the NFL in these statistics. So I think we can summarize Goff by just saying this. As the wide receivers got healthy once again, the offensive line improved, and his pocket presence, got crisp and cleaner again like it was during his near MVP season in LA. Goff's performance clearly places him as one of the best quarterbacks in all the NFL on those matrix. Yes, he's not a scrambler, but you know what? He is what he is, and what he is currently is one of the NFL's best. The other thing I'll throw out there is since the trade of TJ Hockenson, maybe just a little footnote here. He's only thrown one interception since then. And I want you to keep in mind, one of his other interceptions was in Minnesota when he just threw basically a Hail Mary and it was picked off. And then 2 other interceptions were picks, and when he was throwing to T.J. Hockenson. So if you remove the Hail Mary and the 2 picks to T.J. Hockenson, Goff's really only got 4 other picks on his own. See if you catch that stat somewhere else. I had to break down a lot of video to get that. You're seeing St. Brown. Well, I don't know if he'll ever be a top 5 wide receiver. I do think this. He's going to be very consistent for a long time to come in this offense with Detroit. You're seeing, Brad Holmes had the wherewithal, and the coaching staff needs some credit for this as well, to say T.J. Hockenson, while a great person, great entity, all these things, he doesn't give the first component that the coaching staff demanded from their tight ends, run blocking. Hawk came out of college being noted as a mauler in the run blocking game, but that did not pan out early, nor often, nor later in the NFL. So I believe that more than anything, other than what he was going to demand for salary in his next contract, was the reason why he was dealt. And I will say this right now, the Vikings are probably having some buyer's remorse having given up a second-round pick for this guy, especially when you look at all the undrafted players or late-round picks the Lions are using at tight end and having more success with them than they ever had with T.J. Hockenson. All right, let's move on from Goff and talk about the next biggest component to why the Detroit Lions have turned things around. And I'm going to say this. It's the defense. We talked about when breaking down Goff how we didn't have a defense in the first 4 games. And it really wasn't until the Cowboys game coming out of the bye that you started to see the emergence of bits and pieces of many young players beginning to emerge. You saw Joshua Pascal emerge. Yes, he did miss a couple of games during the middle of the season, the latter part of the season with a knee injury. But last week, obviously this kid's getting it. He is phenomenal in run defense, and he's starting to get better and better with his pass rush abilities. Aiden Hutchinson, potentially the rookie defensive player of the year. It'd be hard to argue against him. When's the last time you've seen a defensive end who's a rookie or otherwise get 3 picks, 3 forced fumble recoveries, along with 7.5 sacks, plus the amount of QB pressures and hits that aren't sacks that he is producing. James Houston, you want to call him the problem, the freak, whatever he is what he is, and he is a huge problem for every other team he lines up against. This kid's got something special, and I've talked about him ad nauseum in Lions Talk Live. I think as long as he can improve his run shedding skills and get to the running backs, he's really going to be something. Malcolm Rodriguez, while he hasn't really lit up the stat sheets as far as name recognition and highlight plays, he's been consistent throughout the season, doing what he does, and he is very exceptional in run support plus run block shedding. If him and Houston can help each other out how to learn things, boy, you could really have something with those two. Now you talk about the development of Aleem McNeil in his second season. Jeff Okudah, for the most part throughout the year, has been steady, although I do get the last few games, he has been on a bit of a downward trajectory. Stop me when you've heard this before on Lions Talk Live. It's my opinion he'd be better served as a safety versus a corner, especially as much as Aaron Glenn likes to go man coverage on 3rd down and even 2nd down, where you're locking people up. What's the real difference with Okudah playing back there? The only factor that I can really think of is he's going to be matched up with more tight ends or 3rd or 4th string receivers versus the 1 or 2, the primary ones. So that may be better suited for him, and he is exceptional for the most part in run support. Let's see if they do that in the offseason. But at any rate, the defense obviously has improved exponentially, and not just with those younger players, but you've seen Derek Barnes among others. I'm also going to say this, the next component into why I think the Lions have turned their season around plays a factor in the defense. Here's what I'll say about coaching. Something time has taught me over a bazillion years of coaching different sports. The more you don't know, the more an experienced coach can take advantage of you. When you don't know how to put your team into ideal situations the vast majority of the time, then your team's going to suffer from it. When you don't know the answer for this offense, that defense, whatever the situation may be, you're playing from behind when you're facing more experienced coaches. And let's be very honest with MC, DC, AG, Ben Jay, and whoever else you want to listen to the Lions coaching staff. When they took over in 2021, virtually all of them had zero experience in their current positions, so they were always coaching from behind as soon as the opening kickoff took place. When somebody drew up something schematically, they didn't immediately, in a second's notice, know how to address and answer and counter. Their team suffered for it. Well, what's happened in 2022? Well, we've seen in Minnesota, Dan Campbell made a very poor decision coaching-wise, and let's be fair, a couple of them at the end of that game, and it cost us that game. Seattle, you could say the same thing with Aaron Glenn. He kept putting his team in certain situations on 3rd and long that Seattle already knew what to do, and it cost the Lions gravely. And Ben Johnson is not to be absolved from this. While he has done a phenomenal job as a first-year offensive coordinator, let's also be fair. There were times, and most notably, I'll throw this out there, against New England, Bill Belichick knew how to handle him, gave him stuff he didn't have answers for schematically for the offense, and you could see the offense just fell apart. The problem, and we talked about this throughout the season, when Ben Johnson didn't have those answers, it took him a while, I would argue 4 games, to start figuring out how to beat it. So you saw a number of teams after New England repeat the process, said, hey, they don't know how to go beat man-to-man across the board with their people. Yes, the Lions wide receiver core was fairly beat up at that point, which did not help things. But Ben Johnson did require some time to come up with answers. While he, AG, and MCDC have all evolved over the course of the season, it's also one of the bigger reasons why the team stopped losing so many close games and started winning a number of them. So what does this all mean? I think 2023, and if you watch Lions Talk Live from the beginning, I have a video up where I say 2023 we're going to make the playoffs, win a playoff game, and then 2024 we are going to the Super Bowl. The last thing I'll talk about in today's video, it's Tuesday, it's typically a slower news day for all NFL teams, is simply this: Brad Holmes. It starts at the top, the old saying is, and works its way down. Brad Holmes is the top of the food chain as far as personnel decisions, draft picks, all of the above. And what do you know? You've seen a number of his players from his first draft pan out. You're seeing a very, very rapid development of his second-year players. Is there anybody you could say they've missed on from round 1 through round 7 in the NFL draft from last spring's draft? It'd be hard to find fault with any of them. Yes, a few of them were injured, and that's why he was able to get them at value, but you're seeing them all emerge. Every single player from that draft has helped out this season. The majority of them from 2021's draft have helped out exponentially. So I don't think there's anybody out there with a straight face that can say they have questions about Brad Holmes. The Lions have been built from the top down, and what do you know? We're seeing them emerge as potentially, my prediction is over the next 3 to 4 years, be one of the more dominant franchises in all the NFL. All right, well, I've gone on long enough for this video. What do you think of these thoughts? What do you think of the Lions, how they are right now, how they changed things around from the beginning of the year to where they are? Are you feeling good about the offseason? Are you feeling good about our chances in Green Bay to extend the season into the playoffs? Let's be fair, that's going to be one heck of a game Sunday night. But at any rate, I'll let you all get to getting. If you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. Please leave a thumbs up, and if you could, maybe a couple thoughts in the comment section below. Take care, enjoy your day, and we'll see you all tomorrow on another Lions Talk Live.